money like cashier. Get the money like a cashier. Customer, clientele. I was broke, that was last year.
Hello. Welcome.
Hey.
Sorry, I don't know if that intro was fully in or not. I have no idea. What happened?
The intro was fully in. As long as I saw my name and picture pop up, I'm good with it.
Fair. We still got to update. We still got to update the intro to make sure we got everybody. Anyway, my name is Marcus Ivy. I was not supposed to be on the stream this evening. I was just producing from the background, but welcome to Dope Black Thoughts.
Uh-oh.
You're muted.
Didn't notice. Hi, everybody. Stefania.
Hey, everybody. I'm Hashim, also known as Hot Shade. I'm glad Marcus had clothes on since he wasn't planning to be on screen.
Yes,
that is true.
Omar McGummy, good to be here.
Yeah, and good evening. I'm Mike Carter, aka the Paperboy.
So thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. I'm blaming all of our slight road hiccups on this spring April snowstorm of 2021.
Yeah, blame it on something.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on
today.
But so just glad everybody's here with us tonight. And tonight we have a special guest. That's the connection through Miss Gallegos, through Stefania. So I will let you do all the intros and all that type of stuff.
Yes, we're so glad to have you. Today we have Alicia Garcia.
Hi.
So, hi, Alicia. Welcome. Alicia or Miss Garcia?
Yes,
Alicia. Okay, Alicia. So
as long as you call me Alicia.
Not Alicia. Alicia or Alicia?
Yes. Alicia.
Well, welcome. We're happy to have you. So let's introduce yourself. I know a little bit about you because you've come into my home and you've taught me some classes that we thought were necessary for us, my husband and I today. But introduce yourself, and then we'll take it from there.
Hi, I'm Alicia Garcia. I am a Colorado native. I live here in the Square State that I love. I am an avid firearms enthusiast and advocate. I also advocate for education for children and our youth for the Second Amendment, as well as women, handicapped, gay, lesbian, trans, bi, whatever, all the alphabet people. Basically, everybody should have guns is my stance on things. I have a company by the name of Boomstick Babe and highestcaliber.org that Highest Caliber teaches firearms safety, education, de-escalation, situational awareness, and life preservation skills to youth for free. So anybody under the age of 18 that wants to learn about firearms, positive mental health practices, de-escalation, things of that nature, I will come to you in your environment and teach you for free. I also have a firearm safety and education company by the name of Boomstick Babe that I named after a nickname that my father had given me as a young gal. That
What's that name again?
Boomstick Babe.
Boomstick.
Like
I got it.
But what I do is I provide a firearm safety and education training for either concealed carry, basic pistol, or just acclimation into the world of carrying a firearm to whomever wants to learn. And I'm happy to come to you in your own home and in the safety and comfort of your environment and expose you to that.
Awesome. So you bring a variety of topics that, we feel, need to be brought to the public and give some educational moments here. But let's start off with a little bit of your background. You talked about your dad had you around guns from a very young age.
Yes. I was raised in Colorado. Southern Colorado is a huge part of my heart. I've lived all over Colorado, went to school in, college in Boulder. I grew up in Denver. I spent weekends, holidays, everything in Southern Colorado with my family. So my father was a avid hunter. My family is very avid Colorado people, outdoorsy, fishing, hunting, camping, firearms, all that jazz. So my father and I spent a lot of time growing up just shooting guns as a pastime, teaching me how to handle myself with the guns, going shooting, whatever it may be, and just having a blast. No pun intended. With my dad.
What high school did you attend? Just curious.
I went to Lutheran High School. I went to Lutheran High School for 3 years. I left my senior year so I could go be cool and hang out with my cousins and my friends and graduate from Kennedy High School with them because I thought that was the thing to do then.
You're a commander. I'm a patriot. I went to George, so I always carry on high school beef 20 years later. Yeah.
Right. I hated high school. Like I was awkward and weird and yeah.
It was like that for a lot of people.
Nice.
I was a late bloomer.
So you had stated that you do these trainings for free?
Anybody under the age of 18, I will do for free.
Okay.
For adults, anybody else who actually wants to pay for a in-depth course, the class is usually about 4 hours in your home, 4 to 5 hours, depending on what we learn, and then also range time. I do have a fee for that, but I'm open to working with people that either are low income that can afford it. I work with a company by the name of Guns for Everyone here in the state of Colorado, and I teach a concealed carry course for them once a month for free. It's a gay, lesbian, bi, and transgender class that we offer for free that they can come and get that education if it's something that they have an issue with, the resource to make that happen. And I'm sure that if someone reaches out to me and say, hey, this is important to me, I can't afford it, I'm open to working with you. I think the education and the exposure is more important than the financial part. So, I mean, got to keep the lights on somehow, but I think the education is the real platform.
Nice. Okay.
Awesome. So I had the privilege of taking her conceal and carry class. She's very thorough, very thorough. So let's just jump into some news, though, especially with the things that we've had going on in our community here in Colorado, and the shooting that happened up in Boulder, and some of the House resolution bills that we've seen come through. Do you have an opinion about HR 127? The shooting that happened in Boulder? But
well, when it comes to the scenario in Boulder here, I mean, my views tend to really piss people off because it doesn't align with what they see on the news or what they hear. To me, it's a very, very convenient act of violence when gun legislation and propaganda is being force-fed into the homes of a million Americans, especially now that, I mean, Colorado has always been notorious when it comes to quote-unquote gun violence. But to me, it seems pretty convenient that at the time of a very heavy-duty gun control bill is hitting America, that a mass shooting happens. It seems to be, I have a joke amongst my friends that it's like, oh, okay, it must be election season if there's some form of gun violence that's going to hit the wave in news, because I believe that the government uses instances like this to create fear and to impose fear on cultures and communities in order to, fulfill an agenda that they have. And I mean, I feel it's very unfortunate that people are being sacrificed for those agendas in acts of violence. However, Boulder is notorious for gun control. And if anything we learned from this incident is that gun control doesn't work. It doesn't work. If the invisible barrier of gun control was as what it claims to be, obviously this couldn't happen. It's like, oh, well, that can't happen because that gun's illegal. Well, technically, the information that's being given about the gun that was used in the first place isn't a rifle. It is a handgun. It is a pistol, and it's regulated like a pistol. But it's, portrayed in the media under the guise of, AR-15 rifles. It's an AR-15 pistol. Now, one is smaller, one is easier to shoot. It's a little bit lighter in poundage, accessories, etc. But that's all jargon that's depicted by the ATF.
So I got to jump in right quick.
Sure.
That was a lot there.
Mm-hmm.
So for clarification purposes,
let's unpack.
Are you saying that the incident happened as a conspiracy at the timing of the bill?
I think that, let me put it to you this way. I do believe that there's such a thing as people that do bad things. There's bad people in this world that want to do bad things, and they're motivated by evil. I mean, we're humans. Humans are animals, and I think people cease to forget that to be human means to be an animal and to have violence that's innate within us all.
Okay.
Also, I think that people do thrive on exploiting violence and creating propaganda. And do I think that there is some instance where government probably had a hand in that? Probably.
Okay. But all right. But let's focus it in on the Colorado incident, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that happened in Boulder, if I heard you correctly, you were saying that it was happening in correlation to the gun legislation that's being passed at the Colorado State House.
Not only that, I think on a national platform with HR 127 that's happening here for gun reform and all the things that is being propositioned to America, not just locally here in the state of Colorado. And
but it's not that someone sent this dude up to Boulder in King Supers to fire off and kill these people so that the legislation could pass.
You know, I think that it's a little convenient, and I'm not the type of person that believes in coincidence. I think in this world that we live in is a land of opportunity. And I also believe that if, you know, opportunity is not knocking, people do build a door. So it's easy for people to create drama and propaganda with gun violence. I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, we just had a president who promoted a guy who murdered hundreds of people in Waco, Texas, as your new leader of the ATF.
Okay.
So,
but
I believe our government is corrupt and has hands in a lot of things. And I don't think it's something that
being a middle passage dissent, our government has no clean spots.
No.
Period.
However,
to say that it was orchestrated to have this dude go kill these people in Boulder at the same time that legislation's passing nationally and statewide, is that not a conspiracy theory?
So at least you call it a conspiracy theory, or do you think that one person went off the bandwagon?
I think that happens all the time. I think one person can go off the bandwagon. And I also think that we look at the history of the FBI, there's tons of people that have went off the bandwagon that have met their attention and nothing was done about it. They had interviewed these people in the past. They've had instances with these people in the past. They're past their radar. So to me, it seems to me like if their focus is either to prevent violence, they should have either looked into it more or they allowed it to happen by not looking into it. I think that me being a common American citizen that doesn't have access to that kind of information, you know, I don't want to sound unwarranted, but if you look in, you know, throughout the history of time when violence happens, it tends to be a key point to make discussions happen and enforce reform. So to me, where there's smoke, there's fire. And I mean, I have no trust in our government anyway. And, you know, I know a lot of people think that I'm crazy when it comes to that, but, you know, it makes a lot of sense to me. It really is very convenient.
I have a quick question. First of all, thank you for joining us. And I'm just going to take another point of privilege of for those who are celebrating the holy month of Ramadan. You know, as we get through fasting, and about another hour and some change, I'll be able to eat. But with that stated, you said something about gun legislation really doesn't address the issue. So if gun legislation doesn't address the issue, what do you think does address the issue? Because I go to a lot of vigils. There was a 9-year-old girl that was shot through the door. There was a shooting last year in the park where a young man was murdered at a park in Aurora. Yeah, the gentleman getting off the bus, minding his own business, and was shot in Aurora. So I'm trying to figure out where do you divide the line between conspiracy and actual issues of gun violence that are a problem in society?
I think that we as a community and we as a people need to step up in normalizing talks about violence and guns and how do we prepare for violence. I think a lot of people are so afraid to admit that violence happens. They do everything, well, how do we prevent it? How do we prevent it? The truth is you can't prevent people from doing what people are going to do. What you can do is prepare for it. What you can do is educate yourself. What you can do is expose people to the truths on what it means to be a responsible gun owner and normalize these talks again in society. I think we need to, one of the problems that I see happening in a lot of the world is people want to talk about helping communities that they're not a part of. And it's projecting their beliefs into what those communities need rather than going to the source and saying, okay, what do these communities need? There is such a thing as overhelping and overstepping. And if you bring education back into these communities to talk about violence, prepare them for violence, help them understand what it means to be in the environment they're in, and teach them responsible acts to respond to violence, that's a start. I think that legislation right now is, when we even talk about laws, we're talking about laws that are created by people outside of the communities that are affected by these laws. A lot of laws are designed to make people dependent on the system in a way that either, okay, you get arrested. That doesn't mean you actually committed the crime, but now you're faced with bail. What if you are from a poverty-stricken community that can't afford that? Now you're in the system and now you're stuck in jail. Now you can't go to work. So now your family is now already behind the 8 ball because they're acquiring financial costs that they can't maintain. So now you're indemnified to the city for costs about something that you didn't ask to be indemnified for. And yet you're still not convicted of anything. You're just arrested.
Yeah, there's a lot of
so when you're talking about these communities that have these problems, they have more than the problem of violence. They have a problem of lack of education, lack of resources, lack of funding. There's tons of things that are coming into play here other than gun violence. It just so happens that violence is also glorified in these communities in a way that is designed to keep them violent. Okay. So if we're educating people on what it really means to be a responsible gun owner, we're helping them get resources to these education. We're promoting investing in our community to make them more apt to responding to their environment. That's a start to a lot of problems, not just the violence in the gun industry.
I got a question. Okay, just to be clear. Gun ownership, you want gun education, you want everyone to have a gun.
I don't want to say I want everybody to have a gun. I want everybody to have education on them. There are people that don't need to have a gun. There's people out there that are, facing problems that they could be violent to themselves. They could be.
Here's your point, though. Let's say that. So if you want everybody to, you don't believe everyone should have a gun. How do you regulate that without regulation?
Two questions. Regulation, and at what point? Because I don't know if we got up in the forum the difference between the pistol and the rifle, and they look really similar, and I don't know if they do different damage. How big of a gun do I get?
Well, that's another question. So there's a different question there. So first of all, how big of a gun do you get? That depends on yourself. That's a personal preference, right?
No. I'm sorry. We're no longer regulating the size of the weapon I can walk around with.
The way I believe things is that the Second Amendment is pretty black and white. Shall not be infringed. It's not
bazooka. Can I have a bazooka?
You can have whatever you want. It's
no. Like there's certain weapon grade classes that a civilian cannot have. That's already enacted. And
I'm listening to her. I'm listening to Ms. Garcia.
Right.
And I'm trying to understand. There is no top line. I can have whatever weapon that. To
clarify, in her theory,
right, yes.
In my perspective, yes.
Okay.
I have no problem with you having whatever you want. That's not my place to tell you. It's your place to tell you what you can have and what you can handle and what you're capable of handling. Because in the world that I would prefer to live in, everybody has that ability. To me, an armed society is a polite society. If you're on a block of 10 people and everybody on that block has the same amount of weaponry, I think you're going to be pretty polite to each other because nobody's going to be mongering each other over weapons.
Or
they call firearms the great equalizer for a reason. Is because it makes you equally able to defend yourself against any assailant. Somebody who's handicapped in a wheelchair has the ability to defend themselves equally against a 6'7" man on PCP.
If they have use of their hands, right?
Exactly. If they're depending on their skill and ability, right? So when
Yeah,
you talk
but
about regulation, what you're talking about is that's a government imposed thing. I think it's up to the people to regulate what they can do and what they can handle. I think that should be up to the people what they
so
should participate.
up to the people how? At an individual level or from electing a representative type of level or voting on legislation type of
I
level?
think there's way too much overstepping in the government already. If you decide in your community that you want to elect an official, great. What I think the problem with that is that people get power hungry and people start, you know, getting a little power control going on there. To me, I think it should be about you being available to do that at your discretion in your community. It's not anybody's business what kind of guns you have, honestly. It really isn't. And I to tell you
I'm trying. I apologize. As a citizen, meaning I share this society with you.
Mhm.
As a citizen, yes, I care how much firepower you're walking around with.
Why?
Because when the incident happens, because they will. I don't care. I understand your argument.
Well, Alicia, you said it. People are in evil.
No matter what. How about we be able to walk away? How about as a society, instead of us walking around with AR-15s, and now everyone gets one because in your rules, everybody gets the AR-15.
No, I said everybody has the ability to have one. I didn't say everybody gets one. I said I don't believe everybody.
Well, the ability.
I believe they should have the education about firearms.
I want to get your education?
So the only thing in between that is the exercising of the ability to get the gun. Like, so it's basically the same thing.
Whatever means I can walk up and I can get a gun. Whatever I am, whatever as an American citizen, I can go get my gun. Whatever it is, I can get my AR-15, I can get my bazooka, I can get my assault, I can get whatever I want. That in of itself, if we're all walking around with AR-15s, you understand that is not going to lead to a civilized society. It's going to lead to a lot of people walking around shooting each other with AR-15s.
And other people shooting back and killing those people that have AR-15s.
Whoa.
So let me put it to you this way. Let me put it to you in a different perspective. Right now, there are over 300 million guns in America right now. And yet, gun violence is number 28th ranked in all of the nations in the world. America is the 28th in gun violence. We are the number one owners.
I need that source.
Of guns. Okay.
I need that source.
I'll pull it up for you. You can go to like gunpolicy.com. You can go to, there's all these different places that you can go. But what I'm saying to you is this: guns aren't the problem. Violence is. Okay. The only reason guns get demonized is because they're effective.
Yes.
So if you lessen the effectiveness of the weapon,
yes.
If you lessen the, I can't. I can't. Like, this is so much. So first, I got to say this. I want to acknowledge the families that have lost their lives, that have lost lives, the theater shootings, Columbine, all these mass shootings. And I cannot say, and I normally don't speak for anyone but myself, but I'm speaking for DBT right now. Like, there's no way that we are tying this to a government conspiracy when we have people that have lost the lives of their children in high school, when people have died in the movie theaters. Like, the government is horrible at times, but that was not an orchestration. That was one of those
illusion. So to me, this is where
one of those people having that open choice to have access to a weapon, and that whole thing of people doing bad. That's what happened there.
So this is where there was a gentleman in the Boulder shootings involved. His name was Logan Smith. He is one of the workers that was at the King Soopers when this happened. Okay. He watched his coworker be shot and killed.
The King Soopers in Boulder just
recently. He was quoted, I think on CBS or one of the networks. I'll have to look at the video, but he was quoted that he says when he does go back to work, and he will, that he expects that there is going to be a armed security guard at his job. And he also said he would appreciate the right to carry at work because he does have a concealed carry, and he would appreciate the right to carry. Now, I don't know of any law, and you can go to LexisNexis and look up the laws here in the state of Colorado. There are only 3 places in the state of Colorado that you are not allowed to conceal carry your firearm. King Soopers isn't one of them. As an employee of King Soopers, unless he signed away his rights with his employee contract, he had every right to have that gun on him.
That's not true. According to the law, if the entity posts a no concealed weapons allowed,
that's a lie. There's only
I'm sorry.
If you LexisNexis on the laws of Colorado, there literally are only 3 places. And this is why I think it's very important to promote education. And this is why it's about, to me, educating people on actual true laws of firearms and not what you read and see in the news and when you talk about in the street. The only 3 places that you're not allowed to carry a firearm is federal law or federal buildings. Okay. And that's exempt of like national parks and stuff, because that information is available to you on those national parks. A charter school or public school of any sort. Okay. From K through 12, not including universities. Okay. You are more than welcome to carry your firearm and can still carry your firearm in university. And the third one is any location that is, has entrances and exits with metal detection devices and a guard at duty at those entrances and exits at all times. Those are the places.
Alicia, quick question.
Yeah.
First of all, your education point, I think, is right on in regards to making sure people are educated. I don't believe in taking people guns away, but I have a question for you.
Sure.
I've been shot at multiple times.
Okay.
And I believe those people shouldn't have had a gun. As a matter of fact, I think they shouldn't. Certain people shouldn't have guns, period. That's just what I believe. But to you, for those individuals who you say shouldn't have a gun, what is the best way to keep them from having guns if it's not done through regulation?
Yeah, that's
honestly, knowing that they're going to get shot at, knowing that they're going to die, knowing that if you're going to go someplace and commit an act of violence, people are going to respond with violence. Honestly, that the only answer to a good guy with or a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with the gun, and that's been proven over time.
Can I follow that up real quick? The issue and the risk that you're taking is that I have to sit with mothers who say, I lost my child, a father who say I lost my child. So I have to hope that someone has a gun that's an accurate shooter that's been educated to take this person out, but actually may even shoot some more people trying to take this person out. So
this is why it's very important that
we're going back to the Wild Wild West. Or is there a civil way to address getting these guns out of people's hands who don't need them?
But there would be a civil way to do it.
Are you a religious man? Are you a religious man, Omar?
Am I a religious man? I am a faith man. I was raised in a Christian household and a Muslim household. I got hit both ways.
Yes. So my answer to you is Cain killed Abel with a rock. Violence is violence. You take away guns, people are going to find another way to hurt us.
Come at me with a rock.
Violence.
Right? Come at me with a rock, because while you're like trying to do mass murdering with a rock, other people can control your ass and stop you from mass murdering
these
kids.
The thing is, guns exist. We can't. There's not
exist.
You have regulations.
Guns are going to be erased off the face of the planet.
Just real quick.
So how are you supposed to respond to somebody being violent with a weapon? With another weapon is how you have to respond, right?
Miss Garcia, you can't have it both ways. You can't say there's regulation where certain people will have.
I don't believe in regulation.
Right.
I'm
so
very
everybody gets a gun regardless of ability.
I didn't say that. I said everybody.
Okay, you're missing the literal. I need you to look at the nuance of what you said. And the context.
Everybody gets education.
Everybody gets education. Hold on. And everybody has everybody gets education, and everybody has the ability to be able to have the gun, is what you said. And therefore, that statement fits into what Michael is saying.
That is not something that anybody is ever going to be able to regulate, because right now, the people who aren't supposed to have guns still have guns. I've had people
have a gun.
Everybody's supposed to have a gun, according to you.
Everybody gets a gun.
No, that's not what I said. I said everybody gets education.
And what else did you say?
And then you get your gun.
Ability.
No.
Ability. They have the ability to be able to get it.
Right. Where do I get my gun?
The ability to have and the actual act of doing are two different things. I have the ability.
There's
I
no
walk
regulation
around
to
every
stop you
day.
from getting the gun. There's nothing.
There's
Nothing.
tons of things that are in the way of people getting guns.
In your scenario,
background checks.
in your
They're all
scenario,
having my background
One
check.
at a time.
in your scenario, there is nothing that stops me from getting the gun other than education, which whatever class that is. There's nothing
We
that
already
stops
have
me
enough
from
gun.
getting the gun.
In your
If you look at the
utopia.
Second Amendment as a whole, if you look at the Second Amendment and the way it's written, it's very, very clear. There is no nuances to it. It says shall not be infringed. The Second Amendment was created just in case your government steps out of line, which they have. Which they are. Okay.
Well, no. And that's what I'm asking you, Ms.
That's
Garcia.
not complete.
In your, I don't want to say utopia, but in your scenario,
Well, in her utopia, because in your utopia, Alicia, everybody will have a gun. So
Everybody
if,
gets a gun.
if we're looking at it from your utopia, then Carter's question is what? Go ahead with your question. In your utopia, everybody has a gun.
everybody gets a gun.
education, everybody has a gun. So let's take it from there. Carter, your question was,
If everybody has a gun, how are we even getting to a point where that's a society? That is no longer society. That's people walking around with firepower to kill each other.
and
Why do you think this is what my
real quick, Alicia,
Why do
before
you
you
think
add on
that
that,
homes
before you
equate
add on that,
violence? Because they don't.
Hold on.
People equate violence.
okay, so you said it right there, and that's the second or third time you said it, that people are inherently violent. They're going to be violent, and so why would we strap them if they're going to be violent?
Because
Why
if
are we not regulating that?
you're going to be violent, you're going to die. Honestly,
Say that
if someone comes at you and you're going to be a response for a violent act, okay? You're walking down the street. We've had this discussion before. It's 11 o'clock at night. I stop over and I, gonna put gas in my car, and 2-3 people want to come up and assail me and hurt me. They have guns and I don't. What happens to me?
Okay, so you have a gun. You're able to defend yourself.
And if I have a gun,
But that ratio is 3-on-1, right?
yeah, it is.
They got 3 guns.
Maybe they do, maybe they don't. We don't know.
Well, this is your utopia.
No. You said it. What the hell?
The way victim mentality works, okay? And if you're going to be open to this conversation, I really want you to be open.
I need you to be open to the words that come out of your mouth.
I'm listening.
If you're going to be in a violent environment, okay, you have to respond with violence. American history is built on capitalism and violence. And I think we have become a society that is so afraid of guns nowadays because you've been forced
I'm not.
media, you've been force fed this agenda that guns mean bad guys are going to hurt you. If everybody has a gun, now we're all going to hurt each other.
That's not my
true.
statement.
I don't think that's any of our stance.
Day with a gun and I don't hurt anybody because I'm a product of peace. I'm a product of peace because I'm walking around making a peaceful effort to keep my life alive. If somebody were to hurt you in my presence or try to assault you in my presence and I had a gun, I'd catch case for you, bro. I don't know you, but you know what? I think your life is worth saving and I'd do that. But I think that we live in a society nowadays that people are so afraid to be governed, to step out bounds of the law to, oh, well, that's scary. That sounds awful. This is such a violent encounter. Why would we want to do that? We want to do that because we want to neutralize the threat. And in a society where everybody's armed, that's a very polite society because you know why? Because I could take you out just as easily as you can take me out. So what's going to stop us from doing that? Discussions, community, being involved in your community, the education, the exposure of it, the normalizing of it again, and actually being involved and in tune with yourself and being educated enough to know how to behave in society as people. Now, people are going to step in. Yeah, and you know what happens to those people? They don't perpetuate more violence because someone puts them down.
Is there an age limit ceiling or a cap?
What do you mean?
People
5-year-olds?
Of what?
Having a gun.
When I get my gun. When is there an age? Is there some kind of regulation?
Can we
Whatever you wanna
arm
call
our
it.
6-year-old? Can we arm our 11-year-old? Can we arm our, just to be 18, 19? How old do you have to be armed?
Are you talking about walking around the street or in life?
Yes.
Because I'm telling you right now, there's tons of kids right now that are in homes that have firearms that have been educated on those firearms, but know how to use those firearms. And if somebody comes in that home to hurt them, those kids are able to use those firearms in defense of their life.
We're not allowed to walk out
Should Tamir Rice have had a firearm?
Pardon me?
Should Tamir Rice have had a firearm?
I don't know who that is. My apologies.
A 12-year-old that was shot in a park playing with a toy gun.
Oh, the thing is, I don't think that was a firearms issue. I think that's a cultural issue. And I think that the fact that guns are being demonized again, and it's giving society and, cops and people who have guns an idea that they're associating guns with bad things. I mean,
I don't think that's I don't think they're demonizing guns at that point in time.
Open carry. People say this all the time. Like, open carry means that you're making yourself a target for violence. Why? I don't understand.
I'm black and I'm in America because I'm a black man and living in America.
That they're going to be a threat.
Do you really think that most Hispanic people should arm themselves walking down the street? Your people should arm themselves walking down the street openly?
I'm not a fan of being brazen about it. I don't think it's anybody's business, and I think that's the point.
I think that you would put a target on Hispanic
a sociological norm that people have the inherent right and the ability to defend themselves with firearms. I think this world would be a lot more peaceful place.
So,
go ahead. Just real quickly, I can say there's an argument that gun regulations are heavy-handed in communities of color. I can see that being an argument that they're probably regulated a little differently. There's some research that's been done on that. But you said with everyone having a gun, and we hope that someone else has a gun to save our life, or we have a gun. What about that person who is drunk that has a gun? That person that has a mental illness that has a gun? That person who's having a bad day, and we know they're impulsive, may not have been diagnosed with anything, but just extremely impulsive having a gun. I know you talked about the education, but I still have a fear of certain people having a gun and that can't control their impulses and hurting mass numbers of people.
People do it every day with
vehicles. That's the biggest fear I have.
People do that every day with vehicles. People do that every day with knives. People do that every day.
Control them, though.
That's the thing. They just don't have the vehicles and the propaganda that you're being fed in media to sway you against guns, and like you do with cars. People drive around all the time, and how do we regulate that with laws? Obviously, it doesn't help, does it? People time with other things.
Go ahead, Omar.
And yet they have mental illnesses, and people are still driving cars. They're still functioning in society. Mental illness is a huge issue, but we don't have anything in society that we're doing to help these people get help before they become a lost cause. Most of the people that we've seen create major acts of violence, they were on psych meds.
Okay, let me just interject this here. So if you're comparing a gun to Alicia,
there are things going on here than just guns.
So listen, Alicia, you gotta take a break and let other people in on this.
Hold on.
I didn't hear what you said. I'm here. I have 4 people talking to me, and I can't hear all you guys at the same time.
You talking? We can't hear nothing else.
Miss Garcia, I want to say once again, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your views. I think your views are important. You used the term propaganda. I can say this: propaganda has nothing to do with my views. It's going to the funerals, it's going to the vigils, it's meeting with the parents, helping them have to bury a child or bury an adult because of senseless gun violence. That's where mines come from. Has nothing to do with propaganda. It's actually also being shot at multiple times with individuals who are impulsive. So with that stated, I think there's a lot of people who have issues about guns because of their experience and not because of propaganda.
When you're talking about seeing people lose people that they love, that's a very important thing. I'm not saying that that's not a valid argument. What I'm saying is people are dying in mass numbers to other things also, other acts of violence. They're just not getting the platform of hate and discrimination that gun owners and guns are getting. Okay.
Well, you compared that to a car. You compared the violence of somebody.
I mean, texting,
in a gun.
I'm more in America than texting and driving than they do anything than gun violence.
When has somebody really used a car? Show me the stats where a car has been used equally as dangerously and with the number of acts of violence as a gun. I have
driving
to drive a gun into a school.
People die from.
What are the numbers?
If somebody wants to harm people in the school, I mean, look at Ted Kaczynski. He created bombs. You know what I mean? If you want to create mass murder, you're going to create mass murder. people die in car accidents more than they do at the hands of gun violence.
I see where you're going. Let me just
drive all the time as
Alicia.
Miss Garcia, let me just get in here real quick. I see where you're going, but you got to understand, single car accidents are not equal to massive shootings.
Why are they not?
Because
intentionality.
Hold on, let me finish. Miss Garcia,
right?
I'm gonna let you talk. I swear I'm gonna let you talk, but let me finish real quick.
Yeah,
they are not the same. But what I'm trying to understand is, and when I'm trying to get to the point of your philosophy is that if there are more guns, there will be less people killed by guns. Is that correct?
I'm saying if there is more education, more access to the training, people being able to understand the laws better, because right now the discussions that I'm here is, I believe Hashim, he told me that, that if there's a sign that says there's no guns, you can't have guns. Well, that's not true. So to me,
what else isn't true is that a car accident is the same as a mass shooting.
No, I didn't say that. I said the law.
I want to hear the end of this.
One person dying in a car accident is still as valid as somebody's family dying in a shooting. They're still losing a loved one. It's still a violent act.
But you're negating intentionality.
People use cars all the time as
When's
violent.
the last time they used a car to kill 15 people, to kill 10 people, to kill 5 people, to kill 3 people at one time? When's the last time that actually happened?
There being a truck driver on I-70 here in Colorado who drove through a ton of people.
And his intentionality was to kill all these people?
Do we know that he was? He was.
No, I'm asking you, since you brought that up as the example. Do you know, do you or do you not know if that's the intentionality?
He was negligent. Does it matter? Did we lose?
It does matter.
It does. Does it? Because what you're
saying. Let me say it for you slow. Yeah.
The tool and not the user of the tool. And that's what I keep hearing.
Let her talk.
Aspirins are just as dangerous, right? Because they kill people every year.
If we're going to start being facetious.
I mean, that's you with the facetious, the truck driving. I'm just matching the energy.
You know what I mean? That's not an educated.
I'm sorry, I don't keep the same patience as my other co-hosts do, because there's a pattern that's been set up of word vomiting when you get to spit, when you get to talk, and ignoring questions. Mr. Carter has asked you specific questions, and you have avoided those questions. Can you please?
My response.
I took a breath to continue speaking, not to give you a moment to word vomit again. Could you please just answer his question directly?
I don't even know what the question was anymore.
Almighty.
Everybody calm down.
I'm calm. This is me calm.
I know. Once again, to echo, thank you.
To share information, and if you want to share information, you have to be willing to hear things you don't want to hear on both of our parts. So if you're not willing to
hear that you don't want to hear. Because you're not using your mouth and ears in proportion.
I think what you're failing to realize here is I hear your argument to me all the time.
No. You're lying. You're lying. You don't hear my argument to you all the time because I don't fit the boxes that you tried to paint where I come from. You don't know jack squat about my background and my relationship towards guns.
From you,
okay, so we can't understand. It's all going down in a mess.
Miss Garcia.
Yes.
Ridiculous.
I do have a question. I was just sent an article where it says that Japan only has 100 deaths a year related to gun violence. They have the strictest gun laws. They really don't have mass shootings. They don't have any of those things that we see in the United States. What are your thoughts about that?
I've never been to Japan, so I can't speak for a culture and environment that I've never been to. All I can also say is I really don't trust a lot of the articles and media that I read all the time because I don't know who's publishing it. I don't know who their research is. I don't know what their agenda is. So, I mean, if I'm more than open to read that information if you want to share it to me, but I don't want to speak on something that I don't have any experience with.
WorldPopulationReview.com is where that came from.
Yep.
I'll forward it to you. I think it was Hashim that sent it to me.
When I'm not engaged with you guys.
That's the link I sent where U.S. is number 7 so far as it relates to gun violent deaths in 2021.
And what's the number of those? How many of those are
Look at
suicides?
the link.
How many of those are suicides and self-inflicted gunshots to the head?
I'm sorry, we're talking about gun deaths, right?
Yes, and what I'm saying is, if you're looking at those
If
types of
there were
stats,
less guns,
keep in mind that
that
you're
would be
looking at the
different,
deaths
correct?
of people killing themselves, not people killing other people.
Well,
So,
it's
which again is a mental health issue, not a gun issue.
So people with mental health issues shouldn't be allowed to own guns?
I don't think people with mental health issues can be accounted for in anything. Or how do we regulate mental health? As we
See
give
how I
them
said guns?
Well, that's part of the that's part of the regulation that we're trying to get, that people are trying to get passed in laws, is, you know, regulating mental health, where guns are part of that.
Being a responsible gun owner, and you know, we talked about this in the class that we had. Being a responsible gun owner means making sure that you are accepting that you are in control of that firearm at all times. You know that who has access to it. You know who doesn't have access to it. You are locking that gun up if you need to lock the gun up. You are in control of where it is and who has access to it, right?
If all people were equal.
Yes. So if you have a gun, you should be treating
an irresponsible gun owner,
right?
Exactly. Thank you, sir.
I didn't hear what you said.
What is the consequence? You said you talked about responsible gun ownership, and my question to you is, what is the consequence of being an irresponsible gun owner?
What are the consequences now?
In your utopia, nothing.
Oh, yes, there are consequences.
There is no consequence for being an irresponsible gun owner, because everybody gets a gun, even people who objectively
like I'm Oprah over here, like you get a gun, you get a gun, everybody gets a gun. No, I said everybody gets gun education. Everybody
has the ability to have a gun. Rewind the tape.
I mean, in the country that we live in right now, if you look at the Second Amendment, it says regardless of who you have the ability and the right to possess a firearm. It doesn't tell you what size firearm. It doesn't tell you what color. It doesn't tell you the capacity.
If you continue reading, I think there might be some other words there
that have been enacted by your government.
And some other words. The same government that wrote the Constitution.
It's your government too.
I can't hear what you say when you're talking over me.
Okay, drink some water. The same government that wrote the Constitution.
Meaning it's your government too.
Meaning that, yeah.
That can make the adjustments.
I don't understand why you think that why would you think that the Constitution can be adjusted?
Because it has been. Because there was a point in time when I was 3/5 of a damn person.
Right.
And that's time when none of us here could vote.
And you also you just had a president say that not only
because it can be, and it has been.
All right.
So you just had a president that just said all the amendments aren't absolute. So what that says to me is my gun rights and your 3/10 of a person or 3/4 of a person you just referred to.
Read the Constitution, lady.
Real quick, hold on. Real quick, you understand that Constitution had nothing to do with you when it was written?
Yes, it did.
You were a female.
So? It wasn't disintegrated to be men or women.
We are approaching our time limit.
The first words of the preamble are "we the people of the United States."
And the second words were we're excluding everybody else who we don't believe are people.
No, it's "we the people of the United States in order to perform a more perfect union. We the people establish justice. We the people ensure the domestic tranquility. We the people provide for the common defense. We the people.
You understand there's 4 black people sitting on here with you.
To indemnify the government. It's not me, the people. They don't speak for me. They aren't part of my social class. They ain't part of my community to indemnify me to be able to.
So I need to say this, and nobody might like it or not, but we are approaching a time limit, and time is across the board for everybody. So let's gotta wrap this up.
Well, I wanted to know what her class entailed. Like an hour ago. I would like to know what she taught in her class.
What we talk about in my class is we talk about the laws in the state of Colorado, because I work here in the state of Colorado. We talk about what it means to be a responsible gun owner, what it means to buy a gun, purchase a gun, what the process.
Back up right there. Tell me what it means to be a responsible gun owner. That's what I want to hear.
What it means to be a responsible gun owner means to be responsible for your firearm at all times and be responsible for yourself with that firearm at all times, to know who has access to that firearm, to be in control who has access to that firearm. So firearms are not innately bad or good. They're inanimate objects, right? By the user is what creates a responsible or irresponsible gun owner.
So that's where regulation comes in.
Being educated on your locale, how to behave in your locale government with your firearm, how to engage people when you have a firearm, how to respond if you have to use your firearm, how to create a narrative if you have to use your firearm to, your local authorities when that happens, all kinds of different things that we talk about.
So, Alicia, I just have one quick card. I just have one quick.
The narrative part. I want to know what she means by that.
Okay.
If you're in a situation where, so for example, someone breaks in your house, they're being violent, right? They have a weapon, they're wanting to hurt you and your family. And they have, say somebody's coming at you with a knife, right? And they're going to hurt you, and you reach for your firearm, you shoot them, they go down. Well, your neighbor from across the street sees in the window, paper boy, and they call the cops and they say, I see a black man with a mustache, dark skin, holding a firearm. He just shot somebody. Okay. That's what the authorities hear. So the cops come, all they know is you are a black dude and you just shot somebody. So we have these conversations in my class that says you have to create that narrative that's going to best suit you staying alive, because you're telling me here that you're a black man and you having a gun is automatically assumed to be a bad thing. So what I would tell you to do is you need to create that double narrative. You need to get on the phone. You need to call 911. You need to say, hey, my name's Paperboy. This is what I look like. This is my home. I just shot an intruder wanting to harm me.
That doesn't help.
Send
hold on.
That doesn't work.
Attorney,
because
your attorney on board saying, hey, you know what? I just shot an intruder in my house. Hopefully, I would hope that you have some sort of insurance like USDA or something of that nature that would help you fight this, because it's going to be a legal battle. Because
what I'll say is, real quick, I disagree with 90% of the stuff you said. I completely agree with the last part. If you are going to be a responsible gun owner, you need to, when you come into contact with police officers, you need to be prepared. I don't like the word narrative, but you need to be prepared to explain the narrative. I'll use it to the officers, because
that doesn't work.
Well, it needs to be down on paper. That part I completely agree with. In communicating with law enforcement about your rights and what rights you have.
Law enforcement should know your rights. Well, you should know your rights.
Law enforcement should know your rights. Anyway.
Now, I want to say this. I think that it should be taught that as a responsible gun owner, you should want regulation to some extent. I think a responsible gun owner does not mind being 100% responsible in their duties to themselves, and to others. Meaning that
I don't think it is my peers' duty to do that. I think it's my duty to do that. Because there could be that bias there.
You
don't like me, and all of a sudden you don't want me to have a gun because you don't like the way I live my life, or you're fearful of who I am, or being.
Okay, so that's what regulation does. It takes my wanting you to have a gun out of the hands of me and my opinion. But regulation will say who is and who is not allowed to have a gun based on what is right and what they. I mean, they're not ruling out you having a gun or me having a gun because we like each other. They're ruling people out because of mental illness and because of violent tendencies.
Yes, but you're also saying, I mean, anybody could say you have a violent tendency. A lot of people.
It's on record. It's on record. They're asking.
Not necessarily. I mean, you could be red flag. There is such a thing as the red flag law in the state of Colorado that people could say, okay, well, they've made threats, and maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But in the day and age that we live in, if people have a problem with you, they can start having problems with you and take away your rights. It's the world that we live in. I don't believe it's anybody's business that I have a gun and what I do with my gun, as long as I'm not hurting you with it, unless you're trying to hurt me.
Miss Garcia, I just want to say that you're right, that when people get angry, they sort of have that prerogative to do what they're going to do and how they're going to address it. If someone don't like you, they probably address it a certain way, which is why I don't want white supremacists with guns. I don't want gangs with guns. I don't want people with mental illness with guns. I don't want people that have addictions with guns. And
they have them anyway.
And my point is that I want the guns out their hands, and I want it to be enforced. I want it on paper. If the person is found to be with a white supremacist organization, I want their guns taken. If a person is found to be in the street gang, I want their guns taken. And I want law enforcement to have the authority to go do it. That's just me. Because when I see a white supremacist with a gun and they're flashing it and they're storming the Capitol, or they're coming into our neighborhoods and our communities, I want them stopped.
How come you don't want to stop them?
I want it taken away.
How come you want somebody else to stop them and not you to stop them?
Excuse me?
How come you want somebody else to stop them and not you to stop them? Because
I pay my taxes for law enforcement.
Yeah.
And I want them to be able to take care of it. I pay my taxes for a military that's supposed to protect us, although falls short sometimes. Sometimes our police department falls short, but I want them to have the right to go to the KKK, to go to the Proud Boys, to go to all of them and strip them of their guns, and to let them know that their practices is a terrorist act on our communities and our society, and strip them of all weapons so that they will not cause harm to anyone else, like they did January 6th and like they've been doing since Jim Crow.
What are you talking about January 6th? When they
Stefania.
The insurrection.
Stefania,
So,
have you checked your text messages? We got to wrap this up. We are at 2 minutes to close.
Thank you,
Garcia.
Thank you,
Ms.
Ms.
Garcia. We're about to hit that time limit, but thank you. We generally leave the conversation. We ask the guests for a dope black thought. You are more than welcome to take a swing if you want.
I'm good.
Okay.
Anything you want to leave us with?
I just want to say thank you guys. I mean, I know my perspectives and my voice is not what you're normally used to hearing.
You don't know what we're used to hearing.
The point of this is to start creating conversations, and I want people to start questioning things. I think it's great to have these conversations. And I love when I get interrupted when I'm making a statement too. So
just matching the energy. You even interrupted Stefania when she was talking earlier on, and she brought you on. I'm just matching the energy. I am at the point of pull the plug. It's time. Cue the music.
Have a good night, sir, and you too.
Hi, Alicia.
Thank you, Miss Garcia.
Thank you, Alicia.
Ms. Garcia, are we gonna play out? Somebody play the music. Somebody play the music. Hold on. Before we go,
we need to give a dope black thought.
Okay.
I think we need to say, I agree with Hashim. We cannot pin conspiracy on the lives that were lost in Boulder, the lives that were lost in theater shootings. Our hearts go out to the victims and the victims' family. Those are real events that affected real people. And it was not something that was planned or a conspiracy by our government because a law was coming down the pipe.
Thank you.
We are sorry, and our hearts go out to the victims of any family of gun violence.
And let the record show that's where I lost it. When that statement was made, that's where I lost it.
What I will say is our attempt, which should always be our attempt, is to have conversations with individuals who have different views. And as long as everybody can respect each other, I think those conversations will be fruitful. But if at a certain point there seems to be either a disconnect or a disrespect, I don't know if that conversation is fruitful. But we are not
on the show. Yeah.
We're not gonna stop having people that we disagree with on the show. I guarantee it.
Right.
And I ain't
gonna stop responding. Garcia for coming on the show, being brave enough to come on the show. So, with that being said, don't be a stranger. We need to educate people properly.
Yes. Remember, as a gun owner since the age of 21, I definitely believe that we need to educate people on proper gun usage. Also, my dope black thought, listen, black people, you better be careful out there if you get involved in a situation and you have to state that I was a victim and you were a victim. You were a victim as the things that went on because the law applies differently for us.
But that was the one thing she said about creating a narrative. But I wasn't the
bad guy. The laws apply differently for us. Trust me.
That is a good point about that. You do need to create a second narrative because they're going to call it indifferently. So at least that narrative is out there. That's a good point.
I just would like to add that there were some things I did gain from her conversation. One is I do believe that we need more education when it comes to guns. People who own guns need to have safety locks, need to also understand the humanitarian, the human part about guns, that when you pull that gun and you take someone's life, that person cannot come back.
Yeah.
So I do believe in the education. I thought that part was on point. I disagreed with some of the other commentary, but I think we do need to have broader education for especially in communities of color.
Yeah.
Cue the music.
And these people are part of your community who think like this. So
Cue the music, dog it.
A-D-D-I-C-T-E-D. What is love? It's a drug. Let it rotate, then hit back in it. Calling me an Uber just to hit back in it. Hit the cash out like pay, I send it. Is it really worth the wait? I don't get it. If I didn't gravitate, taste that wet emoji.